To wear God's crown is to walk in the wisdom of God and to know the things of God that are great within man. And because man did not know the way to God, man could not know the way to wear the crown of God. And men wear the crowns upon their heads. And God showed man that his crown tumbles down. And when the head of man was no longer able to support the crown he wears, and God showed man that he became useless, even with his crown. The children of God did not remember how to wear the crown of God. Neither did they know where to locate the crown of God. For God saw the vanity of the children who wore their crowns upon their heads. And they said to everyone, "We are your kings and we are your rulers, for we wear our crowns upon our heads that you may see who we are." And God knew that this was a vainglorious way. This was never the way of the crown of God. Nor were they ever given to wear the crown of God in the way that they wore their own crowns. And so God knew that the children of God went the wayward way. And in the wayward way, they lost the way to greatness. For you must teach them the things that they are yet to know. That when they came as gods and royalties, they wore the crown of God within their own hearts. For in every way the crown of God carried the majesty of God. The children walk in the majestic might of God that was of the crown of God that was in their own hearts. They didn't remember these things because they followed the wayward ways of a wayward world, and they became deceived by the things that they followed because they did not know that was not the way of God given unto them. There are many diadems in the crowns of God, and the diadems represent the several ways in which the several mights of God worked from within them. And it is because of the diadems of God that was in their hearts, they were able to do great and marvelous things, and they were able to transform this valley into a paradise. You know, when God said to them, "You need to know yourself," God wanted them to reflect on what they were able to do, how they were able to do it, and why it is that they were called the Israelites. They did not know any of these things. They couldn't remember any of these things. And so all the children of God went lost in this world. And you must teach them the things that we give unto them to know. For we told every one of them, "Know thyself, know thyself." And there is none that knew themselves. Because every one of them followed the wayward ways of a wayward world. They became lost in this world. There was a time when the children walked with God, and God walked with the children. There was a time when the children knew your God because your God knew the children. And there was a time when the children were like gods because God gave God to them. And they never ever remembered any of these things. And they never ever remembered how it is that they became lost in a world that they do not know. And how it is they became stranded in this valley of Jehoshaphat. We called it Jehoshaphat because it represents the valley of bones. It represents nothing but bones. For everywhere man's demise comes, he is reduced to bones. And wherever he goes into his cemeteries, God shows man that all he will find is dry bones. And man did not understand that God said to man, before God you became a skeleton. You became nothing but dry bones. For you lost the substance of God's existence in you, and you lost God in the existence that you led. And without this knowledge, the children of God were never ever going to discover who they were. We told them, be fruitful and multiply. And God said, son, everywhere we said things to the children of God misunderstood God and went doing all manner of foolish things. As God heard them say, God told us to be fruitful, we must make many children. And God said, look at you. You didn't even understand God. How are you going to know what God means by the things God says? To be fruitful is to observe what God told you. You are but a fruit unto God. And everywhere that you are a fruit, you come in the purpose that is given into you. Look, every fruit in this world shows man that it has a purpose. It serves that purpose faithfully. And every man that comes into this world knows now that he is but like a fruit. But no man can tell you which fruit he thinks he is because he doesn't know the purpose he has come to serve. And when God told man to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, so that God can teach man to know the things of the world, so that in knowing the things of the world he would find the wisdom that is in everything, and that wisdom that is in everything would communicate to man what it is that God has given into him that is represented by the wisdom that is outside of him. These things they didn't know, they couldn't know because God said to you, they didn't wait, they didn't keep faith with God, they followed the ways of man, they didn't follow God, they didn't trust in God anymore, they started trusting in man, they started believing in man, and they started doing everything that God told them went the wayward way. So you will tell them, when you discover what fruit you are, then now you're going to know what purpose you came into this world to serve. And every fruit that comes from a tree shows man that it multiplies itself and it gives it to everyone freely. That principle of multiplication is never understood by man because man did not wait for God to teach man how God speaks and what God means by the things God says. And man went exacting things from man, saying, give more, give this, give more. And God said, look at you. You are asking that which does not belong to you. And none of these ways that man followed that were given to man was any of the ways of God that was given to man, because God wanted man to know that whenever he would find a way to know who he is and know how God is the way that he is, he would also come to recognize how God speaks and what God means by the things God says. And there's no man that understood these things. Because every man went the wayward way, and every man that followed the wayward way went into the perishing way. And so we give you to teach and to preach and to teach and to preach and to teach and to preach. For these things were not known to the children. And when the children did not know how they were deceived by the many who came into this world, were distorted in all the ways they became distorted, and they were always deceived by the things that they had found. They had not known how they had become deceivers, and in becoming deceivers, they were deceived. All these things that man had found, in all the ways they found it, in all the things that man said unto man, man deceived man. And no man said to God, God, is this true, what this man has said? God said to you, man placed the trust of man in man and not in God. And God said, if you look around this world today, it's the same old story. Man tells man to do this, he does it. This one tells you to do this, you do it. And everything that we told man never to do, man disobeyed us. Everything we told man never to do, man disobeyed us. We even told man, place not your trust in man, but in God. God said, everywhere in this world, same old story, same old story. No man comes to God and says to God, God, show me the way that I may know the way, that in knowing the way I may be the way. God said, and all like sheep gone astray. And everywhere they went astray, they went further and further into darkness because they lost faith with your God. And when they lost faith with God, God lost faith with man. We say to you, tell them how we tell it to you. You lost faith with your divine Father and Mother God. And God lost faith with you. The difference between you and God is that God did not forsake you. For God waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and still waiting for the children of God to do as God told them to do. Turn away from these ways. Return back to the way that is of us in you. Wait on us. We will come to you, for we are all that you are. And when we come to you, we will show you the way to know the way that you can walk safely again with God. They walked with God and they talked with God. And none could remember how it is that they walked and talked with your mother and your father God. We always show you the things that are to come. We always give you the way to know that which will come. And we always let you see the things that God sends forth in the world. That in all the ways it is given to come and it will come. It will be the last will and testament of God to the tribes of earth on earth. We bless all things that we give unto you. We send you forth in all the great and mighty ways of light. And we give you always to teach and to preach the gospel of truth, that all the children of God may awaken in the new consciousness of God, and they will come to know the way that God is within them, and the way that God directs the affairs of everyone that God created. God's blessings are always in you. God's lights are a light in you. And every way that we send you to preach into the age, so will your lights shine forth from you and around you, so that they may see and know the way that God exists in you. For I am that I am that I am in you, and in all the children of God. So will the lights of God come forth from them, and they will know why your God called them the Israelites. We bless all things that are sent forth to the children. Let those who have ears hear, and let those who hear know the way that they must go. For in all the ways that God separates the tares from the wheat, God culls this world of all that which is of no use to God, that will never, ever enter into the kingdom of God. God sends you to teach and to preach and to teach and to preach, and to lead the children in the way of the promised land.